This is CUNY TV, the City University of New York.
James Day, public television pioneer and chairman of the CUNY TV Advisory Board, passed away in April 2008. His legacy includes the series Day at Night, which aired for 130 episodes beginning in 1973. The program features interviews with many of the great thinkers and achievers of the 20th century. These 30-year-old programs have been restored. The interviews remain fresh and relevant today, exploring issues that are still important to society. Showing them again is CUNY TV's tribute to Jim and his contributions to public television.
Somehow, Myrna Loy has survived the fruits of her own success, 30 years of playing the role of the perfect wife. Despite her film success, or perhaps because of it, Myrna Loy has in recent years turned toward the stage, playing most recently in the Broadway revival of the play The Women. It all started with her role as Nora Charles in the hugely successful series The Thin Man, and continued through countless movies with the biggest names in Hollywood. Movies that helped make the 30s and 40s what they were.
Pretty girl.
Yes, she's a very nice type.
You got types?
Only you, darling. Lanky brunettes with wicked jaws. Leo, compliments of season.
Who is she?
Oh, darling, I was hoping I wouldn't have to answer that.
Go on.
Well, Dorothy is really my daughter. You see, it was spring in Venice, and I was so young I didn't know what I was doing. We're all like that on my father's side.
By the way, how is your father's side?
Oh, it's much better, thanks. And yours?
Say, how many drinks have you had?
This will make 6 martinis.
All right. Will you bring me 5 more martinis? Leo, line them right up here.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm.
Do you recall that?
Yes.
It all comes back now. There seems
indeed.
seems to be an age of nostalgia. We're all looking back.
Well, they keep running it all the time now, you know. The Players ran it and gave me a lovely silver bowl not very long ago, the Players Club in New York.
It was such a huge success. You've been quoted as saying that it took you many, many years, in a sense, to overcome that success of playing the perfect wife. Was the role of Nora Charles an unusual character in those days?
Well, I think in those days, yes. I think she was, I think it was the first time that you had seen a married couple having, you know, usually you got married and lived happily ever after, but you never saw that.
That's incredible. So many of the stories did deal with people building toward the marriage and the fade out at the marriage.
And that was so that was a myth, and we thought that we showed where it was possible to have some fun. And of course they were anything but perfect. I don't know where the perfect wife came from, because she was not perfect. She was, I think, a perfect companion. That was the idea. I think men thought, oh boy, you know, this is... And because
she was in a
funny.
sense, I suppose, I hate to use the word liberated, but in a sense she was liberated. She was an individual who obviously had led her own life with Nick.
That's right.
And could deal with him almost on equal, perhaps on equal terms. That would appear from that clip on equal terms, I would say. At least equal.
Well, until she got home. The next time you see her, after that scene, she's walking around the apartment with an ice bag on her head. But I mean,
yes, we've seen that scene.
But she's still walking.
Were you enjoying that at the time? Do you recall how...
Oh, very much, yes.
But there came a point, I gather, where playing Nora Charles did begin to pall?
Well, we only did 6 of them. No, I never had any problem with except that they were not as good. The last 2, I don't think, were as good as the first ones were. Albert Hackett and Francis Goodrich did the first 3, and we always had great writers on all of the others.
That makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yes, Harry Kernitz and I had marvelous, George Oppenheimer, who lives here now, you know, said that, called me the other day and thanked me for mentioning the fact that, that he had written Libeled Lady. And I said, well, I think that writers, it's time that writers had some credit for, you know, because where would I have been without those wonderful writers? And I had some bad ones too in the early days when I played them.
Let me ask you to go back to those early days, because those were the days, at least in the very beginning, when you were playing Oriental femme fatale, were you not?
Yes, oh yes.
As a matter of fact, that's where the name Loy came from.
No, that isn't where.
That's not true. There's so
no,
much.
that is not where the name Loy came from. No, my name was Williams. Is Williams, and I didn't want to change it, but they were threatening me with things like Myrna Lisa, you know, and I thought, no, that's not good. So some young man who belonged to an avant-garde group of the time came up with this, and I liked it, rather liked it, not too much, and I put it on the back of some photographs and sent them to Warner Brothers. And the next thing I knew, I had a contract with them, and that was my name.
Once the name was on the contract, you were named. Huh?
And it's been a lovely name. I just found out the other day what it means. It's a Thai name.
Oh, is it?
And it means to float, yes. In Thailand, every year they have a festival there, and it's Loy is part of the name. I can't remember the rest of it. Someone's taken my book. Alec Wall wrote a book called Bangkok, and it's in that. And they have this festival in which they send little boats out into those klongs, those canals, and they put candles and flowers on them and their sins, and they send them away.
That's a beautiful
Isn't that a
reference,
lovely
isn't it?
way to get rid of your sins?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a long leap from a farm on Montana to
a ranch in Montana.
Ranch, of course, a ranch in Montana, to playing Oriental roles. What bridge that? You were born on a ranch in Montana, were you not?
I was, yes. I was actually born in Helena, Montana, but I was living on a ranch in Montana, yes. My grandparents were all pioneers in that valley called Crow Creek Valley, named after the Indians of the area. And that was where I was born.
You've said, again, these references may be as erroneous as the others that I've dug up, but I believe you're quoted as saying that your family was a politically aware family, that you had a certain heritage there.
Yes, well, of course, I was taught that everyone should have. I believe in my country, and I think it's pretty good. I think, needs a few little patching here and there now, but my father ran for the state legislature when he was 21 years old and voted his first vote for himself.
So politics was very much a part of the
conversation. And he was a Republican, and my mother was a Democrat. And so as a result, I'm a Democrat. Well, I don't know what I am anymore. I'm a radical.
I see.
As I get older, I get more radical. But I think that I consider myself a liberal in the best, in the true sense of the word. But, however, yes, and I had a grandmother who was a county treasurer. I think Montana's like that. We've also, given our country some good people, Mike Mansfield and Senator Murray.
But they didn't happen to go into the theater, or at least not in the same kind of theater you did. What led you from Montana into the theater to begin with?
I went into it when I was very young. I used to put on plays in my basement when I was a child.
I guess we all did that, didn't we?
Well, I think we did, but I apparently was very serious about it. And my father's family was Welsh, and I think they have a great heritage. And my father was a great storyteller. He was a raconteur. He was marvelous. He was very funny and had great wit. And my mother was a musician, and she played the piano very, very well. In fact, she studied at the Chicago Conservatory of Music. And so there was a lot of that around me as a child.
And they then didn't resist your desire to go into the theater?
No, no. I lost my father when I was very young, in the epidemic in 1918, in that terrible flu epidemic, unfortunately, which was a very traumatic loss for me. But my mother encouraged me, and was never, she never came around much, but she was very proud and very happy of what I accomplished.
When and where did the break come that got you into motion pictures?
Well, it took a long time. I danced. I was a dancer, and I danced at Grauman's Egyptian Theater, finally, to earn some money for the family. And that was where I was supposed to have been, as you know, discovered by Rudolph Valentino.
I almost dared not ask you.
I know, but it's true.
It is.
Well, he saw some photographs of me that were made by Henry Waxman, who came and photographed 3 of us one night. They were going to put some pictures of us out in the court, in the Egyptian courtyard, you know, and he saw these photographs, and he said, ask her to come over, and I did, and he and his wife were marvelous to me. And they made a test of me, but I was not ready yet to play the lead opposite him in Cobra, which is what he had.
Well, this is what he had in mind.
But I had a lot of training, but I wasn't ready for that. But I did work in her film, and Adrian dressed me, and he really made me the exotic woman that I became soon after that. I mean, he dressed me in a very exotic costume with a funny little tight wig that looked like inverted horns, and so that had a lot to do with it, and the fact that I danced. And then my first film at Warner Brothers, first talkie, was The Desert Song, and that was it wasn't my first, but it was the biggest picture that I did, and I played Azuri, and I played she was a belly dancer. I found out
I can
later.
remember that film myself. That was quite a film in those days,
Yes,
wasn't it?
it was a lovely film, marvelous film. Beautiful, John Bowles.
Yes,
and,
John Bowles is the one name I can recall.
Yes, Carlotta King.
And the belly
Louise
dancer is
Fazenda.
something I should not have forgotten.
Well, I don't think she wasn't listed as that, but she was a desert girl, and I think that was what she did in the canteen. I think she was, because I remember that they threw money at me. And one
Have
night,
they ceased throwing money at you since?
well, no. No.
Miss Loy, you've played opposite some of the greatest names in Hollywood, and there's no point in going through all these names. They're familiar names to all of us, but I'm wondering to what extent your own style of acting had to adjust itself to the styles of the different co-stars with whom you played. Leslie Howard and William Powell and John Barrymore.
It's interesting. That is an interesting thing, which I don't think occurs to many people, but I did adjust. I know that, although I think Duza was my example. I saw her, and she was, her simplicity impressed me. But I did find a great difference in playing with Clark Gable and with playing with William Powell. I instinctively played a slightly different woman. With Clark, of course, I played sort of tough women usually, and but that was what he demanded. He liked women. He liked Carole Lombard. Could swear like a stevedore. I mean, she was so delicate and so beautiful. But and with Cary Grant, I know in Blandings, I immediately sort of shifted and became rather spoiled in that. And he is very funny when he's long suffering. He's terribly funny. And for some reason or other, that was the way it worked in that picture.
Were there some that made you feel that you were a better actress for working with them? That just gave you that feeling, whether you were or not?
Oh, well, I suppose all of them, helped. Everyone was a challenge, except at that time, you see, we didn't realize. Now, Leslie Howard, of course, I had enormous respect for, because he came from the theater. But Clark and I were like two kids that started together. We didn't, as I said to somebody the other day, I said, nobody knew that he was going to be a legend. We didn't. And they used to say, well, how could you bear to work? I said, well, they weren't legends to me, and they were just attractive and charming people. But we were learning too as we went along.
One of your most famous films was The Best Years of Our Lives.
Yes.
That was made, after the war, 1946?
46, yes.
Do you mind if we show just a little clip of the homecoming scene from that? I'd like to see it again.
All right.
I look terrible.
Who says so?
Isn't fair of you to bust in on us like
I
this.
phoned you from Portland.
Yes, but you said you wouldn't be home for a...
We were lucky. We got a plane to Welburn, and I thought we were going to get stuck there, but we came right through.
Al, are you all right?
Sure. Are you all right?
Of course I am.
I had to ask who that was. It was Frederick March.
Frederick
of course.
March, yes, oh yes.
For a long time, you did not play in movies, did you not? In recent years, haven't you gone very much toward the stage?
Well, I started doing the theater in '61. I had never done the theater before, believe it or not. Never. No, I grew up in films, and although I studied for the theater and had studied voice and had done a lot of things, I had never done it. And
Was it a hard transition to make for you?
well, I decided that I was going to go out and do stock, which is what I did. I knew that it was different. I knew it had to be. I mean, I knew that I didn't realize how different the techniques were. And so I went out in marriage go-round, and I had Claude, speaking of great actors, I had Claude Dauphin with me. And so I had a lot of help. And then I did that, and then I finally went into Barefoot in the Park, and I toured in that for 2 years. And I was in Chicago for 2 years, for almost a year. And that was a great exercise in learning how to play comedy in the theater. It's very different.
It is different.
Because in films you don't stop, you just keep right on going. But in the theater, if you get a laugh, everything, you freeze. Nothing, you know, everybody has to be very still.
But there must be a real satisfaction in getting that immediate audience reaction rather than wondering if it's coming later.
Yes, it is, yes. And sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't get it.
Then it is no thrill.
And it's very tricky sometimes, because somebody, like yesterday I had a line that I thought was pretty funny, and somebody coughed right in the middle of it, and the audience didn't hear it. That can happen.
You're playing in The Women right now and having fun, I understand. Does a play as old as The Women still have some kind of message for the audience, or is it camp? Is it pure nostalgia?
Well, it's pure nostalgia, I think. We don't certainly think it has a message. It was done in 1936. Yeah. It's a very funny play, and people are having a ball. They yell and scream and whistle, you know, that kind of thing, although we play it very seriously, but they are having just such a good time because there are so many marvelous actresses in this show.
Yes, indeed there are.
And, I mean, with, well, Alexis Smith, Kim Hunter, Rhonda Fleming, and Dorothy Loudon, who is fabulous, is the perennially pregnant lady, you know. And then you have the smaller things, the smaller parts. Jan Miner, who's become a star, which she's going, her name's going up tomorrow. I mean, she is now. It's terribly exciting for me.
Well, The Women on Broadway follows Irene, No Nanette,
yes.
All part of, only a small part of a kind of a nostalgia boom. What do you suppose is the reason for this looking backward?
Well,
you seem to me not to be the kind of person who looks backward.
I'm not. No, I'm not. And that's not why I would much rather do a new play, but there are none. There are very few new plays, and especially for women. Claire Booth said not long ago, she said, my goodness, this has got to succeed, because she said you have the championship season, you have the changing room, all these men, 90% of the women in New York will be out of work if this doesn't go.
Well, you are a founding trustee of the American Place Theater.
Yes.
Now that's to develop new playwrights, is it not?
Yes.
So perhaps that's the answer to where the new plays are coming from.
Well, I think it is. I think it is. And, but I don't know. I'm curious. I don't know what it is that, unless things are so complicated, I don't know that writers simply will not deal with the problems. They don't seem to. I'm involved in the National Committee Against Discrimination in Housing, which is one of our most difficult problems now.
Do you think that writers in the theater should deal with current problems?
I think they should. Yes, but for some reason or other, this isn't happening much. I would say probably the championship season has to do with lack of involvement in these things, but
and bigotry, certainly.
Yes, and bigotry. And yes. Oh yes, now and again you find there is some, and of course the black writers are writing. Ed Bullens, and he works. He likes to work with us. He will with the American Place Theater. He's very choosy about where he puts his plays on, you know.
Is the theater strong today? Are new playwrights going to have an opportunity to see their plays performed? I guess that's always been the problem with writing for the theater, is the chance of getting the play performed.
Well, that's why we are. That's what we're for, because we don't operate the way the commercial theater does. And in other words, we don't have critics on opening night. We let the play run for, say, 10 days, and if the writer wants a critic, and most of them do, strangely enough, they want one. But well, I suppose they have to. They have to have opinions other than the opinions in the theater. Of theater people. And
is that the only purpose that criticism serves?
well, they have to know whether they're any good or not, I guess. I don't know. But no, but we do not. We let them run, and let things happen before that we have the critics, and then the critics can come anytime they want to, when they're on any night they wish to come, and that's the way we work.
Ms. Loy, you were politically active, so to speak, some time back.
Oh, mightily, always.
Back in the days of the Hollywood 10 and so forth, weren't you organizing a committee for the First Amendment?
Yes, I didn't organize it, but I was a member. I was an
active
active member of it. Yes.
Always, I suppose, trying to work for the freedom of the artist.
Well, yes, the freedom of everybody,
Yeah.
because at that particular time, of course, there was that dreadful. I mean, it was a political battle that was going on, and the right wing sold out everybody that disagreed with them, and it was really quite frightening.
What got you mixed up with the UNESCO? I know you've devoted many years to UNESCO.
Well, I was interested in, it seemed the right thing to become interested in the United Nations. Even my father, as a child, my father was interested in President Wilson because he had his ideas he thought were good. And I knew Mrs. Roosevelt. I was one of the fortunate, few people who did know her, and worked with her many times.
And she was undoubtedly an influence then, was she not, upon your involvement in these things?
And I also knew Jan Masaryk of Czechoslovakia, and because I had said a wire during the Munich crisis to him, and so I came to know him. And but it was really more or less a natural thing, You say, well, flyers fly, and I've always been involved in politics and in the future of the world.
But the fact that you are a famous and well-established actress undoubtedly made you perhaps more effective in working with these organizations,
well,
yes,
and
calling attention to the work which was being done.
Well, that is what I do now with the National Committee Against Discrimination. Now they say, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm the co-chairman of the advisory committee, and I do a lot of things, but I also talk about the problem, and the problem is very grave because, for instance, in the city of New York, many of the factories have moved out of the city into the suburbs, and the reason that so many people there's such desperation in some areas of the city is because these people have no work, and they can't get to the work because they cannot get housing in the outside in the suburbs. They can't. They don't want them if they're black or brown or poor.
Do you think actors should take an active role in politics?
Yes, I do. But I think if they do, that they should know what they're talking about. I mean, I think it's a very great responsibility, and I think you have to spend quite a lot of time at it.
Do you spend most of your time at it, even though you're still performing?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that I can't. No, I mean, when I'm performing, I mean, I have to spend, of course, a good deal of time at my work. But I must say it's a very, very great part of my life. Yes.
You're going to continue to perform, no doubt about that.
Oh yes, I hope so.
Are there roles that you haven't played that you'd like to play? Not specific roles necessarily, but would you like to perform in classic plays, for example, or what's the challenge that still is open to you, having done so many things in the theater already?
Well, there are the things that I wanted to do I will not do because I've outgrown some of them. There are some of the things that I always wanted to do. I always wanted to do The Road to Rome, but I won't do that now.
Why?
Because I'm too old.
I mean, why did you always want to do it?
Oh, I'd always want to do it. Well, because I loved it. It's such a great comedy, and it's about it's a great comedy. But you know, we have been at war for so long that they have not been able to do that. Joe Mankiewicz and I wanted to do it before the First World War. We couldn't because suddenly war we had to get out and say war is a great thing.
Yeah.
Because Hannibal in that play has a great line. You know, he and the woman in the play goes to see him. He's up on the hill just outside Rome, and she's very curious about this man. And so she decides, she's bored with her senator husband who is making speeches on the hill, and she says to her little slave, let's go up there, and they go. And during the course of the conversations that they have, Hannibal opens a drawer and looks in, and he says, this drawer is full of keys, and he takes the keys out, and he said, these are all the keys to all the cities that they've given me, all the cities that he has conquered in this war, and he's so bored.
Bored.
Bored, yeah.
That's one of the great dangers today, isn't it?
He's bored with war, yes.
That we all might all become bored.
Well, I hope we get bored with war. That's what I hope. But, well, yes, you mean apathy as far as what's happening?
Life is so complex, and even television and radio and newspapers pile so much on us, so to speak, that the only reaction seems to be to kind of shut out the world to a certain extent, with the result that you get apathy. Now, you don't feel that way, obviously, because you're very much a part of it.
No, I don't. I know what you mean, though. I'm not sure that that's the problem. I think that it's wonderful that we have all of this, you know, this, that we can be aware. It's tiring, of course.
Yes.
Because one is aware of some tragedy that's happening on the other side of the world, and it can be very wearing to a certain extent. But I think it's wonderful that we can know so much about what is happening, and
it's important that we use
the
what we
freedom
know.
of the press is number one important. I mean, freedom of communications. But I think that the thing that really is tiring everyone is their sense of values. Is that you have to be a rich man, and you must do this, and you must do that, and you must do what Mr. Jones does, instead of having, you know, you can have a really lovely life if you without being rich. It's nice to be rich, but there are many other things in the world besides that. I think people are driven so that they're exhausted.
Thank you very much, Miss Loy.
Thank you.